All right, we are here with Ken Hill. He's the managing director at 700Credit. Ken, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me.
I am excited to learn, first and foremost, tell me a little bit about what 700Credit does for those that might not be familiar.
Well, we provide, our core product is we provide credit reports for dealerships. Dealerships pull a credit report before they submit it to lenders to ensure they're going to the right lenders. And lenders don't want them sending deals that they're not qualified for at that lender, so they have to align the consumer with the lender. That's our core product. We've been doing that for over 20 years.
Sure.
And then we've just started expanding into identity verification, validation, soft pulls, bringing soft pulls into the industry, making them prominent within certain tool sets. So.
Crazy. So, and call me the ignorant audience member here, coming from Canada, which where I'm originally from. This idea of identity verification is kind of a foreign concept to me. So here in the United States, you're saying that is there a lot of theft, identity theft, fraud happening in the market?
Well, there's a difference between identity theft and fraud. Identity theft was the problem about 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
And the FTC put a red flag regulation in place that you have to do a red flag check on every consumer before you sell them a car. And so we supply that product to dealerships to be able to validate the identity of the consumer. Right, you're basically checking their name and address that it matches what's out there in the public database, and checking fraudulent databases to make sure they're not a known fraudster.
Right.
Validating different pieces of information. So, and that helped slow down identity theft. Right. Identity theft is you're a consumer, you're walking in with somebody else's driver's license identity, and you're trying to buy a car in their name.
Yeah, absolutely.
The problem that we're fighting now is fraud, synthetic fraud, which is a growing problem. It's over an $8 billion annual problem. And that's...
synthetic fraud, what does that mean?
It's a fraudster builds a synthetic identity.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And they're patient. It takes a couple of years.
Yeah.
And basically they're stealing a social security number from even a minor, and they're combining it with a false name and address, an address where they can control. They establish a credit file for that false identity, right? Just by going to an online,
Unreal.
Right? Cap one, apply for a credit card with this false identity, creates a credit file. Then they can pay someone to be a authorized user on a credit card, like I do with my kids.
Sure.
When they go to college, I make them an authorized user on one of my credit cards. I get them a credit card. I can monitor what they're using it for.
Right.
But it also establishes their credit.
Wow.
Because they inherit my payment habits from that credit card onto their credit file. So that establishes a score.
Yeah.
But then they can go and start applying for more and more credit cards.
Wow.
So they're building this history, their credit history, their credit score. They build it substantially over like a 2-year period.
Yeah.
And then they go what it's called the bust out.
Yeah.
And the bust out is when, all right, I built all this credit. Now I'm going to walk away. I'm going to utilize it and walk away from it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the bust out. And the problem in automotive is that the number one target for large purchases before the bust out is automotive. So they're the number one victims of synthetic fraud.
Okay. I mean, aside from losing sleep vicariously for all of these fraudsters, I'm curious, what is 700Credit doing to mitigate that, to help dealerships retain back money and not waste money on fraud?
Yeah, well, we did a webinar a couple of years ago. We actually did one yesterday here. We had a webinar with the 3 credit bureaus at NADA. And basically, when we did the webinar, the number one line of defense is know your customer. You need to do a deeper dive into who your customer is. So there's synthetic scorecards that can easily be added to credit files, credit reports, but we've also developed developed a product. It's called Quick Scan. It's an identity verification product, and basically validates a driver's license. Right. So now, when you go to a dealership, you hand them your driver's license. We scan it with a mobile app, and it's going to validate the license. It's going to compare the information on the front to the back. It's going to take a selfie of the consumer and match the image on the driver's license through biometrics. We're then going to validate the identity. That information we got off the front of the license, we're going to validate that that identity exists. We're going to bounce it off the DMV to make sure that, that's a valid license at the DMV. OFAC checks, other identity synthetic fraud checks. And then we're going to electronically put it into the deal jacket. So dealers don't have to touch it. We're going to validate it.
So it all happens as part of the overarching process.
Yeah.
Wow.
So number one line of defense is to validate that driver's license.
That's fantastic. Ken, I want to thank you so much for sharing more about your driver's license authentication system. Quick Scan. Very exciting, and boy, I can't.
I think you put it better than I did.
Well, I don't know about that. I have a cheat code here.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds like a really exciting product, and of course, it makes all the sense in the world why your booth is full with new dealers learning about this. I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys stopping by.